afternoon to you. It's 4 o'clock in time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us. Hope you're having a good afternoon. Browns made some moves. We'll get to those in just a minute relative to the roster. Still no clarification on Quinshon Judkins and what's going on with him. Is a suspension coming from the NFL? Is one not coming? There's no contract yet. He's the only rookie that's unsigned. Longtime Browns beat reporter Tony Grossi with the Quinshon Judkins situation.
You know, it could be any day. I've asked the Browns a couple times, and they said, nothing yet. So I think they're a little frustrated, too. They obviously know what's going on and are not revealing it.
Is this whole guaranteed money debate still in it? I mean, the guy got accused.
Just want to get in here?
Yeah, I think so, right?
I think this. Whatever they do contractually, once his NFL issue is resolved, the contract's not going to be a problem. And it's got to be this. Is there a suspension? Is there a fine involved? More so than they're haggling over. I mean, the Browns don't haggle over money very much. They don't. They pay pretty well to get a guy in. So I don't think the contract is the holdup.
And again, the NFL spokesman, Brian McCarthy, has said that they're still reviewing it. So we'll see. At some point in time, the NFL will come down and let the Browns know exactly what's happening with Judkins. A few minutes ago, Browns head coach Kevin Stefanski talked about Raheem Sanders. That's a running back who the Browns claimed on waivers from the Los Angeles Chargers today.
All these guys, you have a little bit of a book on from that pre-draft process. So you know their tape, you've met with them, whether at the combine or bringing them in. So you get a pretty good feel for the guys. And then you give Andrew and his crew credit because you have to pour over a lot of tape over the last 3 weeks to see who may become available, who would be a fit for us. So that's really what happened.
What was it about him that fits with you guys?
Productive player, good size, runs hard. But got to get him in here and see how he does. But the tape's good.
And we'll have more on Sanders with Jacob Roach in just a few minutes. Browns also announced some signings to the practice squad. We'll have more on that in a few minutes. But Kevin Stefanski talking about how the Browns view the practice squad.
Practice squad itself has evolved so much over the years, and even way before my time too. It was a different squad, if you will. So the sheer numbers of that, having that many guys available to you, allows you to be flexible. It allows you to have some young guys that you're developing, some older guys that you can elevate in a pinch. You can help one side of the ball on 1 week and then pivot to a different side next week. So it does give you some flexibility. I think a lot of those practice squad players, Mary Kay, are guys that have been here, have played in practice and games and are dependable and trustworthy. And Caden certainly fits the bill. Has played in games for us going back to last season. Can feature him on special teams as well. So he's definitely a guy that we're very happy he's back.
Plenty more Browns talk straight ahead. It'll be Jacob Roach from the Orange and Brown Report later in the show. Dalton Wasserman from PFF will join us. Guardians defeated the Rays 4-3 in 10 innings. High school football is here, and every Friday night, Rock Entertainment Sports Network is the place to be for all the scores and highlights from across Ohio. It's Friday Night Huddle from 9:30 to 10:30 on Rock Entertainment Sports Network. Join legendary head coach Chuck Kyle and I on Friday Night Huddle. Starting at 9:30 on Rock Entertainment Sports Network, we'll have all the scores and highlights and news from across the state of Ohio relative to high school football. Friday nights, 9:30 on Rock Entertainment Sports Network. Head to watchrockentertainmentsports.com. Watch Entertainment, rockentertainmentsports.com for channel information and programming information as well.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
You got so much to do, it's got you feeling blue. Put a So come on, play games and wait for you and me. Ohio, light it up. Put a little play in your day. Put a little play in your day.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. We told you Browns made a couple of waiver claims. Running back Raheem Sanders. We heard Coach Stefanski talk about him in the first segment. 6 foot, 217-pound running back. Ran a 4.46 40 at the combine. They claimed him off of the Chargers. He was waived by the Chargers. Defensive back Jarek Bernard-Converse. He's been with the Jets 2 years, mostly as a special teams player. The Browns waived Brendan Bates, who was then added to the practice squad, and cornerback Dom Jones to be able to acquire those two players. Sanders is the guy that could get some playing time. He becomes the third running back, and here's a look at him in the preseason for the Chargers. In limited action, had over 100 yards in a couple of games, scored a touchdown as well. Has a physical running style that is what the Browns wanted. You can see he gets downhill and has a little bit of burst to him as well. A guy whose relative athletic score is pretty good for a bigger guy. Again, a bigger back. The Browns claim him, and he slots right into that running back room. Let's welcome in Jacob Roach from the Orange and Brown Report, as well as the Barking Browns podcast. Jacob, your thoughts on Sanders first, and then the DB they get from the Jets.
I was very surprised this year when Sanders went undrafted. Like, that was a very big surprise for me. He was an early day 3 guy, kind of a 4th round, 5th round guy for me, and was one of the guys where for a while I was kind of thinking the Browns were going to wait till day 3 to address the position at all, just because of how stacked that class was. And he was kind of one of those guys that I had in consideration, and you kind of talked about it. The big build, like, he's kind of a one-cut guy, but he's going to run with authority, and they call him Rocket Sanders because he's got that 4.46 speed despite being a big bruiser. Like, he's not going to make a bunch of cuts and a bunch of people miss in the open field, but, like, don't try to arm tackle him. He's going to run you over. Reliable hands. I think he does a decent job as a pass catcher out of the backfield. Not very good, you would think, with his size and power profile, to be a better pass protector than he is, but unfortunately it's kind of a weaker area of his game. But, they need a power back. The uncertainty with Quinshon Judkins, I'm pretending until he's signed. I'm just going to act like he's not around. I'm not going to plan for that because I have no idea what's going to happen. So they needed somebody that could be that bruiser, the short yardage guy. I'm very interested by the fact that when Judkins does sign, this running back room is going to be composed of 3 rookies and then Jerome Ford, which I think maybe this is the one position you can kind of get away with that, maybe. But I find that very interesting. But he's going to be a really nice change of pace. Like, he is what that room doesn't have with Quinshon out of it. But, like, again, he's got the burst, he's got the power, like, he can create some big plays. I really like him a lot. I thought they might go a different direction. I was actually surprised he even got waived. I know that it's always nice when you claim a guy and the fans of the team that he came from are mad, and Chargers fans are very upset that Sanders got let go and is now not able to come back. So that always makes you feel good. But if you look over at Jarek Bernard-Converse, the as you had said, he didn't play much the last 2 years. The thing that's really interesting about him is his athletic profile. He had a 42-inch vertical at the combine and a 4.40, a 4.4 flat 40. So, like, he's as athletic as you're going to find in a defensive back. Like, he can turn and run with most of the, most wide receivers in this, in the NFL. And I was looking at, he spent 5 years in college, and he starts his collegiate career as a slot corner. Plays a lot of slot, plays a lot at the free safety, and then the last couple of years in college, he was on the outside. I think he is probably, they're looking at him as that athletic kind of physical guy that can play in the slot primarily. But, having that flexibility is going to be really nice. And we know that Andrew Berry covets that, but he's a guy that just hasn't done a ton in the NFL, but he's got a lot of athletic upside. And I'm pretty interested to see, how they use him.
Browns also announced some of their practice squad, not all of it. Mentioned Bates, who they cut. One of the guys they cut was added to the practice squad to make room for the pickups. A lot of familiar names: Sal Cannella, Caden Davis, Chris Edmonds, the safety, Holly, Lamarian James, another defensive back, Sam Kamara, Amani Marshall, the running back, Okora, Travion Williams. They do add Malachi Corley, that's the guy you see pictured from the Jets, who was waived, and offensive lineman Cole Strange. Who are the guys you were intrigued by? Corley's a guy that, for whatever reason, never, that was the guy that was big, run after catch guy, didn't ever really put it together for the Jets out of Western Kentucky.
He was a draft crush of mine coming out. Like, that was a guy that I really, I was writing for Browns Wire at the time, and I wrote multiple articles leading up to that draft about him. I went back just out of curiosity to see it. They called him the yak god, like the yards after catch god. That's what he called himself when he was in college. And it was like, he drew a lot of comparisons to Deebo Samuel because that was his usage at Western Kentucky. Lined up in the backfield as a running back, a lot of there was a lot of screen, quick pass, end arounds, things like that. Has good speed. It's more of a build-up speed, it's good acceleration, but also just real physical. He was very raw and undeveloped coming out of Western Kentucky because he just didn't run a very diverse route tree because of the way they wanted to use him. They did all these manufactured touches a lot, like I said, like Deebo Samuel did in his prime in San Francisco. Just wasn't a great route runner, just all the little technical sides of the game just wasn't really there and refined for him. But in terms of physical skills, good strong hands, good speed, good physicality, he just finds ways to create a lot of yards after the catch. And you're talking about, you've got this guy to now sit and develop. His upside is really high, in my opinion. He's just that kind of guy that can just make things happen with the ball in his hands. And it just didn't work out for him in New York for whatever reason. I'm not 100% versed on that, but he seems like a guy. It's very interesting that he had multiple offers and he went to Cleveland. I'm always interested when I hear, hey, there were other guys out there other teams out there trying to get him. But he's just so good after the catch that he's the guy that, when I got that was one. You don't usually call your friends when they sign practice squad guys, but I did have to make some phone calls to celebrate that signing because I do think his upside is tremendous.
Well, the opportunity exists here for him. He's a big physical guy as well. Talking about big physical athletic guy, Aiden Huntington, undrafted rookie free agent, made the team with a story of how Myles Garrett kind of helped him realize he belongs in the NFL.
I remember in mini camp, Myles had came back, and I actually had talks about going to train with another guy. But when Myles said it was the end of practice, he said, look, I'm going to be in Dallas for 5 weeks. I'm going to send my address. I'm going to send where we working out. Pull up if you want to. And I said to myself, well, I was just going to go back to Virginia and just work out at home. So I called my dad. I said, hey, this is the opportunity. And I could, and fear would have had me stuck at home. Fear would have had me back at home trying to be comfortable, but I had to get out of my comfort zone. I had to text Myles. He probably didn't have my number saved. I had to fly out there basically on a whim. Had the opportunity to stay with him as well and get fully immersed in the opportunity. But like I said, just stepping out of my comfort zone and having that opportunity.
What made you step out of that comfort zone, fight that fear?
I just had to, either I had the fear of staying the same or I had the fear of getting better. And that was a big thing for me. Like I said, I could have went back to Virginia. I had the necessities to train and get better, but I had to see where I aligned myself with guys like Miles, guys like Micah, guys like Will Anderson and A. Wright and Isaiah. So me stepping out my comfort zone, it gave myself a mental check to be like, okay, you stack up. Okay, this is where you are at. Miles is a different breed, but it doesn't matter. You have to compete every day. And for myself, I went in there every morning to compete, to get better. And I feel like, me just going there for those 3 weeks, it allowed me to, just physically, it changed my body physically, mentally, and I was able to showcase that during this training camp.
That's kind of a cool story. Miles clearly saw he had the athletic profile to play, and that helped him realize that's great. That's what a veteran should do.
Yeah, and we always talk about like the leadership qualities, like in some cases with Myles Garrett, maybe not quite the leader, that some people want him to be, but like that's a big deal. Getting a guy like Aiden Huntington out there, like you said, the athletic upside, because when you watch him test and you watch his tape, you're like, this guy is a freaky level of athlete. If I can just figure out, kind of refine some of his hand usage and footwork and just, the technical side of things, his ceiling is very, very high. And it's not often you see a guy that plays defensive tackle making plays on special teams and kick coverage.
Yep.
Like, it's very clear that what he learned and the confidence he gained from going there with Myles Garrett in training and getting all those extra reps in with some of the best, in the business, it rubbed off on him in some way. Like it's just very clear that the work ethic and the drive is there from Aiden Huntington, because it looks like he's probably going to play special teams, defense, fullback. Like he might even throw a pass or two this year. I'm not sure. We'll just see what he can do. But like, that's a really cool story. You love to see that in the veteran leaders being able to take some of those young guys under their wing and just kind of offer them some, words of wisdom. And I just think that Huntington must have learned a lot, because he's had an insane preseason. Like it's been very fun to watch.
Well, one guy who could potentially be throwing the ball for the Browns is Bailey Zappy. They just signed him to the practice squad. So the Bailey Zappy experience is back. There's your veteran backup in the event something happens to Joe Flacco and they're not quite ready to put one of the rookies in. They had to do something relative to that, just to kind of couch their bets on the rookies, I think.
Yeah, and I think you've seen in the past, like they have a tendency to bring some guys back that have at least had a cup of coffee with them. I thought it was going to be Tyler Huntley before he decided he was going to go over to Baltimore. We saw Bailey Zappy last year. Yeah, that's just kind of a break glass in case of emergency. Like for me, the way I sit on the two rookies is I do believe Dylan Gabriel is ready to be that backup quarterback. So I do believe like if Joe goes down, I'm 50-50 on Shedeur. I think he just needs some more time. So, Bailey Zappy maybe backing up Dylan Gabriel or something like that, or especially if Gabriel gets hurt. I think that's a no-brainer to get a veteran, especially a guy that was here recently and has a little bit of a feel of the terminology. I know the offense is different, but I actually think Bailey Zappy would be much better in this version of the Browns offense than he was in last year's. I think he could, if you have a really, really strong run game, maybe he can tread some water, but break glass in case of emergency kind of guy. I don't hate that move.
Jacob Roach from the Orange and Brown Report and the Barking Browns podcast. Now I'm going to step aside to a quick timeout. At the start of the break, we head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports4CLE, I'll be right back. Stay with us.
You got so much to do, it's got you feeling blue. Put a little play in your day, 'cause it's fun all over the state. So come on, great games away for you and me, the Ohio Lottery. Put a little play in your day, put a little play in your day.
We continue talking Browns with Jacob Roach from the Orange and Brown Report, the Barking Browns podcast. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Yeah, this is Dennis from Cleveland. And I know the past is the past. But I can't believe the media can say with a straight face and critique that Shedeur Sanders was given the same playing field that Dylan Gabriel was given when Dylan Gabriel was out there with better talent. And I know that the reason why Shedeur was out there with those third and fourth stringers was because they were looking at those guys to see if any one of those guys were worth keeping. And they cut every one of those guys that were out there playing with Shedeur. But to criticize Shedeur for having a bad game, playing with guys on the offensive line who were like turnstiles and receivers that couldn't get open if they were on the field by themselves. It's unfair for them to blame Shedeur for having a bad performance. Thank you for listening, and have a nice day.
As always, we appreciate all of the voicemails. Jacob, I'm a guy that I think Shedeur can play, but against the Rams, he wasn't good. I mean, you can. 3 of the linemen that he played with were on the final 2-minute drive that Dylan Gabriel had where they went down and got points. Now, the guys he was playing, the Rams had 6 guys. They brought 6 guys to Cleveland that made their 53-man roster. 3 of them were the kicker, the punter, and the long snapper. So he wasn't going against NFL guys. He didn't play well. It's okay. He will get better. Be patient. He is not ready for what we need him to do yet.
Yeah, and like you said, it's fine. That's fine that he's there. I mean, he was a 5th-round rookie, and I know people will argue whether or not he should have been drafted earlier or not, but that's where he is. He's in a developmental stage, and all along we've been told, on the, Dylan Gabriel's ahead on the procedural side in the classroom on the whiteboard. For me on Sunday, and I said this after the game, I said, this was a bad game. Like, it was really bad for Shedeur, but it doesn't define him. Like, by no means does this throw out what he did in Carolina or throw out some of the things that he's done in training camp. It just highlights the fact that he's still developing and growing. And, like, do I believe he can be a starting caliber quarterback in the NFL? I absolutely do. I just don't know when that is. I know it's just not right now. And, like, it's okay. It's okay to be like, yep, had a bad game, put it behind you, learn from it, because talking to him and listening to him talk, you when you listen to him, he admits fault, admits where he needs to get better, knows he needs to improve, and he's doing and saying all of the right things. Like, I have no doubt that he's not going to work his tail off to get better. It was a bad day, doesn't define him. Just shows where he needs to improve.
And you know what? I have no problem with him wanting to be out there in the 2-minute drill. And I have no problem with Kevin Stefanski making the move he did. So I want him to want to be out there because he thinks he can fix it. He just needs to work on a couple of things. And again, stop with everybody setting him up to fail. That nobody is setting him up to fail. The Browns haven't had a quarterback in 30-some years. They want him to work. They want one of these guys to work out. Dan Orlovsky.
Anybody to work out.
Yeah, Dan Orlovsky, former NFL quarterback, on if he thinks Shedeur can be a starting NFL quarterback.
He's a young man that is really intelligent, has high-level football IQ. I bet you if we sat there on a board or tape, he can just spit out what's going on, what to do with the ball, sees the defense, all that. Has a great understanding. He just needs to have a lot of reps at NFL speed to realize how legit NFL speed is. The pass rush, the change of coverage, the windows opening and closing, what he can and can't do, what he can get away with and can't. And so he just needs a lot of growth and development in that, which is what we said when he came out of Colorado. And that just seems to be the case. It wasn't something that erased itself that quickly. And so, but is he physically talented enough to be a starting quarterback in the NFL? I still believe that answer is yes.
And I wouldn't argue with any of that. The other thing that when people break down what happened, the Rams were taking away the first read. So the Rams did film study on what he was doing well. So now they can work on what he needs to do if somebody starts doing that. That's how it goes with quarterbacks developing. They're going to take this away. All right, then I'm going to go do this. Let them figure it out. What were your thoughts? How do you think the young guys played against the Rams? I know you wrote an article. Take us through some of the guys that stood out.
I'm so happy for Gage Larvidan. Like, I thought he stood out again. He's not really gone out there and been like 100-yard a game kind of guy, but he just seems to show up with at least one or two explosive plays here and there. I gave him like another B-, and he ends up making the roster. Showed that he could do some return stuff. They did keep DeAndre Carter is going to be the primary returner, but if, I think you feel pretty good about what Larvidan can do, at least as a punt returner, and didn't do a ton of kick returning. So I was really happy with that. Aiden Huntington, we touched on already. I thought he was phenomenal. He just lived in the backfield in that game. And again, they kept several UDFAs, on this roster in it. And some people might say, well, I don't know if that's a good thing. I do. I think they kept these UDFAs because they worked their butts off and played really good and showed a ton of upside in that category. I think, again, Mason Graham, I'm happy with Mason Graham. Still, you can see he just still getting a bunch of double teams. I can't wait to see what happens when they can't double team him anymore. I think that his skill set, I think this aggressive Jim Schwartz style defense is going to unlock another level for Mason Graham in terms of pass rush ability, because this is not the same style he played in college. This is more of that aggressive attack style, we play the run on the way to the quarterback kind of thing. He's still going to play the run really, really well, but I think the attacking style is actually worked out really well for him early. Jamari Thrash was another guy that I thought really showed up. And we've talked a lot, and there's still a lot of questions in this wide receiver room. And we talked about, Malachi Corley being now added to that, being very interesting. Gage Larvidan and Jamari Thrash in camp and in the preseason, I feel so much better. I'm not calling this like a top 10 wide receiver group or anything silly like that, but everybody want to call it bottom 5, maybe one of the worst. After what I've seen from Jamari Thrash and Larvidan and, of course, Jerry Judy's still there and stuff, those guys are showing they can be really solid contributors. And I think that wide receiver room's a lot better than I wanted to give it credit for. And then the other guy that you have to talk about is Luke Whippler. Luke Whippler's just been fantastic this preseason. It sounds like the Browns are optimistic about Ethan Posick being ready for week 1 with that knee injury. If not, I think that Luke Whippler could step in and play pretty well. His movement skills, he doesn't miss assignments. You can tell he's so smart. I know there's been some jokes with other players. They called him, Coach Whippler because, the football IQ and stuff. He's just, unfortunately, just the injuries. He's not been able to play for the Browns in the regular season yet, but he's just been really, really good. And if Posick is hurt or they move on from him next year, I think Luke Whippler is ready to take over at some point as the full-time center.
How do you think this offense uses 2 of the rookies, Fannin and Dylan Sampson?
I think Harold Fannon's going to get a lot of run like he did at Bowling Green. I think you're going to see them use him because the question that a lot of people, including myself, kind of asked with Harold Fannin was, how much can he take on quickly? Tight end is a very difficult position to transition from college to the NFL, especially if you're a guy like Fannin who wasn't playing it at the highest level. He was playing it in the MAC at Bowling Green. Now, he had great games against Penn State and A&M, the 2 big teams that he did play. They used over 100 yards in both of those games. But they used him a lot in H-back as a lead blocking fullback. They would hand the ball to him. I think he did some wildcat quarterback while he was there. And then what we've seen them do in the preseason and in training camp is a lot of those same things. I think he's going to be used as a chess piece. I think Dylan Sampson's the same. I think you're going to see Dylan Sampson in the slot. You're going to see them move both Dylan Sampson and Harold Fannin all over the field to try to create these mismatches. It's interesting. We'll see when Judkins is back, because Sampson might have to do more running back stuff when it's just him and Ford and, whoever else, Raheem Sanders. And if Judkins is back, he takes over that RB1 role. They may be able to move him out into the slot as a wide receiver and stuff. But I think those 2 are going to supplement that wide receiver room, who like I said, I do feel better about, but still has some question marks and still needs to do it in the regular season, obviously. But those are guys that I think can attack and create mismatches because they've got, the athleticism and the size in Fannon's case where he's got, he's not undersized for a tight end, but you put him in the slot and he's a lot bigger than a lot of slot corners. But just their overall athletic ability, I think those guys are going to get moved around a lot. And it's all going to be about how much can they take on their plate. And so far, so good for them. So we got to see how it translates to the regular season. But I think they're going to be used in just a plethora of different ways.
Jacob Roach from the Orange and Brown Report and the Barking Browns podcast. Now I can step aside, take a quick time out. We'll head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason when Sports4CLE returns. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Jacob Roach from the Orange and Brown Report. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, guys. I poked enough at our coach. Now I'm poking at the GM. Yet another stupid move. He signs the kicker for 3 years after he has one good year, and he's already 31 years old. Now he's getting rid of him, and we're stuck with all that dead money, which we don't have money in the first place, but why would you do that? If I was the owner, I'd have to say to myself, you guys always say our owner isn't having a problem spending money. Well, the guy spending his money is not doing a very good job. And if I was the owner, I'd have to say to myself, I ain't getting anything out of it. I got to get somebody in here who's going to give me something.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. So, Jacob, the dead cap money is $2.1 million this year, $2.7 million next year. Yeah, I mean, you never know when a kicker's going to develop the yips, and Dustin Hopkins had the... You know what? I give him credit for moving on from him because it was horrible last year, and it didn't look like it was getting any better. I get the question about a kicker under a guaranteed contract. I have more problems with him drafting a kicker in the 4th round.
Yeah, I would agree with that because at least in Hopkins' situation, that contract was given to him because he had one of the better kicking seasons a Browns kicker has ever had, right? Like, and you think about, he set an NFL record for most consecutive games with a field goal made of over 50 yards. Like at one point he was 10 for 10 over 50 yards. He would then go 2 for 6 after that. But like, I personally don't know many people when he signed that extension that thought that was a bad move. In terms of like physical ability, he has the physical ability, but you talked about it. It's just like golfers. We talk about kickers and golfers in the same way. Sometimes you get the yips and your swing and you just keep slicing it and hitting it into the trees. And it was like, even his makes, it was like, it was drifting, almost went right. And then he would overcorrect it and go left.
It looked like it was a knuckleball. He had no idea where it was going. It's kind of going like, well, it's not exactly what we were looking for. But again, so they moved on from him. Again, I get hindsight is always 20/20. Yeah, right now looks like a bad contract. Not quite as bad as the $230 million guaranteed to Deshaun, but bad nonetheless. Veteran wide receiver Deontae Johnson failed to make the 53-man roster. Browns released him yesterday. Albert Breer with his thoughts on Johnson and the Browns.
A big part of it is whether or not you can trust him. You know what I mean? If you give him a spot on the team and he doesn't have a certain role, is he going to do all the right things? And that's important, A lot of times with guys like him, like, you can keep them in line if they've got a real role, right? Like if they're a starter, but if the guy like that's not a starter, are you better off keeping him in where maybe you're not sure you can trust him? Or are you better having a younger developmental player in that spot? I think that's sort of what it comes down to when we're talking about those things. It's also, part of it's a function of your special teams value and what was he bringing from a special teams standpoint. Because once you get down, your 4th receiver, your 5th receiver, your 6th receiver, now you're talking about those guys having to contribute to the team in other ways, like outside just the offense. So Yeah, I just think Deontae Johnson is one of those guys where if he shows you that he can catch 50, 60, 70 balls, or that he's going to be that guy for you, then you're willing to maybe take the risk. And then beyond that, you have to figure out whether or not you trust him. If he's going to play a smaller role, I could definitely see where a team would say, well, it's just not worth the headache to have him around based on how we maybe project this playing out after everything that happened in Carolina and Baltimore and Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and in fairness to Johnson, I agree 100% with Albert Breer. He was nothing but good while he was here. As that was being talked about, one of the things that I had said about this roster heading into the offseason, they needed young playmakers. They've got some potential now. You got Sampson and hopefully Judkins at some point, Sanders in the backfield. Corley's intriguing, Isaiah Bond's intriguing. So they've kind of addressed Harold Fannin. They've addressed what I thought was a huge weakness on this roster. Now they got to go out and do it in the regular season.
Yeah. And what I really like is there's a lot of guys there that can create different types of explosive plays. Like, with Isaiah Bond, especially, like that's the verticality, right? Be able to get more vertical. Well, Joe's got that big arm, and then you've got guys, Corley, Jamari Thrash, guys that can create yardage after the catch, which was just something that it felt like they never did last year. I'm sure that's an over exaggeration on my part, but it felt like when they did complete passes, it was, it was what it was. Harold Fannin's really nice after the catch, and we've seen Dylan Sampson have a few plays this past week. The one pass that he caught and then spun around and stayed up and got a first down and things like that. It's betting on potential, but like that's how you recover from giving out a big contract to a quarterback that never worked out. Is you get younger and you get guys with this upside potential, and this passing offense just wasn't good. And now you've got a guy that is going to take risks in Joe Flacco. Like I saw someone say, like, he's either going to throw the craziest completion you've ever seen or a pick six, and it could be either one on every play. And we just don't know. It's gonna be a ride. But like you've given him some guys now that have the upside potential, guys that can create after the catch. And we saw David Njoku have a huge year or not full year, obviously, but he had a really great run with Joe Flacco because he was being given opportunities to create after the catch. And now they've got even more guys that can create after the catch. And they added speed with Corley and Bond. And like, they understand that they were limited to where they didn't have a bunch of guys that could take the top off the defense. And if you hit on these young guys, you've got these young guys for 3, 4, 5 more seasons, to where you've got a lot of rookie contracts and a lot of upside players in cost control. So there's still a lot of betting on upside, a lot of betting on potential, and not people that are necessarily proven. But they did bring in, I think, especially over the course of the last couple of weeks, just an influx of guys that have playmaking ability.
Yeah, and not all of them are going to hit, but if 2 or 3 of them hit, all right, now you got a nice nucleus. Now you have something to build an offense around.
Yeah, and like I will always be in favor of taking chances on players with upside potential, with high ceilings. Like Isaiah Bond's, like, he's got a low floor, he's raw, he's underdeveloped. Same with Malachi Corley. I understand that like it's going to take some coaching and there's a chance that it doesn't work out, but like limited ceiling guys are only going to get so good. I love taking chances on guys that have some elite physical traits and ceilings that, like, hey, if he gets the right coaching, if everything clicks in his head and we get the right quarterback and the scheme fits him and all these things, like, he can be really, really good. Those are the kind of players they brought in. And those are the kind of players I'm always going to bet on. And like you said, you only need to hit on a couple of them. They're not going to hit on all of them. I mean, if they hit on all of them, that'd be awesome. But like that's not going to happen. But like you did take some chances and you brought in a lot more talent that I think was worth taking chances on.
Jacob Roach, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Jacob.
Thanks, guys.
Jacob Roach, make sure you check him out. Orange and Brown Report, also co-host of the Barking Browns podcast. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, Dalton Wasserman from PFF We'll talk a little Browns, a little college with Dalton. Sports for CLE. Be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
Sports for CLE continues, and we continue talking Browns. Yesterday, Kevin Stefanski made it official. Dylan Gabriel, the backup quarterback to Joe Flacco, which means Shedeur Sanders will be the third quarterback for the Browns. Dan Orlovsky, former NFL quarterback, with what he thinks went wrong for Sanders against the Rams.
If you go back to the Carolina game, the things that you liked were there weren't a ton of moments of holding on to the football. The ball came out of his hands relatively quickly. He saw the defense really well. He was proactive rather than reactive. And then you went to the Rams game, and early on it felt like he was reactive rather than proactive. It felt like he would catch the snap, almost not try and read what the defense was doing, wait till a offensive lineman got beat or a seam was created, and then take off and go from there, and held on to the football way too long. And I don't know if it was, well, Dylan played really well against the Eagles and then really well against the Rams, and it's like, well, I have to go outplay him. And a lot of the things that you saw or that I saw in college that gave you some hesitation and reservation, they showed themselves.
With that, let's welcome in Dalton Wasserman, PFF data analyst, host, PFF college football show. And Dalton, I think that kind of sums it up really well. And again, we have a huge contingent of Shedeur Sanders fans here. I think the guy can play, but that was bad. What we saw against the Rams was everything in 5 series that you were concerned about that he did at Colorado in college.
That's true. And I mean, look, every player coming out of college is an understanding of what he needs to get better at as well. And I think exactly what Dan talked about there of sometimes predetermining that pressure is coming and and just kind of abandoning the pocket presence and reading the defense part of the game, right? And I think what the difference between Gabriel and Shedeur in this scenario, with Gabriel winning the backup job, is this. We have this kind of 2.5-second mark in each play where things start to get unstable if you're succeeding after that mark, right? So you've got Dylan Gabriel, who's getting rid of the ball quickly and accurately under that 2.5-second mark, and that's a more stable predictor of how he's going to play in the future, where Shedeur, at times, especially in his first preseason game, was really good with improvising and winning late in the play, winning with some of that improvisational skill that he has, but he needs to get better within structure, more consistently within structure, and that's why Gabriel's won the backup job so far.
So I know you've kind of been grading a lot of the first-round picks and rookies in general. First, the first-round picks. You graded all 32 of them after 3 weeks. You wrote an article on it. Mason Graham, the overall rookie grade, 56.7. Only 9 snaps in week 3 and a 68.6. What have you seen from Graham, and what leads to that grade?
I mean, honestly, it's a relatively average grade, especially when you're talking about a guy who only played 22 snaps in the preseason. What you really saw is a guy who didn't get the expanded opportunity to show you in game action what he is, because we know as the 5th overall pick, he's going to be starting at defensive tackle for this team, right? I mean, I think you're going to see him hold up well, especially in those one-on-one matchups. I don't think, especially with Myles Garrett on the outside, that Graham is going to be the guy that gets a ton of double teams. So I didn't necessarily see anything in game action that was exceptional or bad, but if they trust him enough coming out of training camp to start him, I still expect that he's going to have a good rookie season.
The other thing, when you look at Graham, defensive tackle is a tough position for a rookie to come in and excel at, because these are grown men that have been doing it for a little bit that he's going again. It's a position that you have to kind of grow into, no pun intended.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, Graham's a very good athlete at his size. It was complaints about his arm length during the pre-draft process. And I think he's going to be challenged by teams running the ball. But I also think this first week against the Bengals is a really good matchup for him, right? You're talking about a team that had the lowest graded group of guards in football last year. They're not very good on the interior. They don't even know who's starting at right guard for them right now. They're going to have a rookie in Dylan Fairchild starting at left guard. So I think you could see Graham get off to a really good start and a good matchup against Cincinnati week 1.
What about the other rookies? Who has kind of stood out as you've looked at them and graded them for the Browns? Who's grabbed your attention as someone you think could be a contributor, a significant contributor early?
I think most of these rookies, especially outside of the two quarterbacks, obviously with Gabriel as the backup and Shedeur as the third stringer, I think most of these rookies are going to contribute, right? Obviously, there's the Quinshon Judkins situation, which opens the door for Dylan Sampson to get a lot of carries behind Jerome Ford. I think Harold Fannon's going to play a lot in those two tight end sets. And then I think the biggest impact guy, aside from Graham likely, is going to be Carson Schlesinger at linebacker, right? Jordan Hicks' retirement really opened the door for him to be playing a 3-down role. And in the small sample that we got, he was the Browns' highest graded defensive player for us in the preseason, racking up tackles. He plays with such a high level of urgency and speed in this defense that I think is going to be a really nice compliment to Devin Bush. He's still got to figure out some of the instinctual things on the field, but Schlesinger is a talented guy, and he hasn't played a whole lot of starting caliber football in college, only 1 year as a starter, but he gives you 110% effort all the time, and he's a really good athlete.
So earlier this week, Browns traded Kenny Pickett for a 5th-round pick. Albert Breer from Sports Illustrated talked about that trade.
I don't mind the move. I think, look, there's a lot of history over the years. The team's taking swings at quarterback, and if and it working out or it not working out. And, Andrew worked in the Eagles organization and has some of that background. And if you look at it, they've always taken swings, and so. I mean, for the most part, if you don't count the DTR part of it, you moved a 5th-round pick back a year to get a 4-month look at a guy who was a former 1st-round pick at quarterback. And in the end, you had him in position to compete for your starting job, and because of injury, that didn't work out. So you have the chance to get the pick back. Maybe you don't feel like you have quite enough information on him to turn down the trade offer, and that's that. And I think that's a pretty simple way to kind of summarize it. And then I'd say that the upshot for Browns fans is and I think this is a huge part of it, and it's something that not a lot of people are talking about, but it's also a tacit admission or tacit acknowledgement from Andrew Berry and the Browns front office that they would feel comfortable putting Dylan Gabriel in a game tomorrow.
Yeah, again, that's kind of my takeaway from it, Dalton. I'm curious as to yours. Was all right. Kenny Pickett was insurance in case our 3rd-round pick and our 5th-round pick at quarterback weren't ready to go. Well, and who knows? Many a rookie have looked drastically different in the regular season than preseason, but Gabriel looked like he could go in and operate an offense.
Yeah, he looked like he could function. And I think as long as Gabriel and Shedeur didn't both look like disasters in the preseason, Kenny Pickett was the most likely guy to be moved, right? There's really no long-term incentive to keep him, right? And I think you were just waiting for another team to have the level of urgency that the Raiders did to make this move with their backup, Aiden O'Connell, suffering an injury. He's going to be out a while. They needed a veteran backup. The Raiders pulled the trigger on Kenny Pickett. And as far as the Browns go, I think this was always the most likely outcome, is that Pickett was going to go. The two young kids were going to stay on the team because they just drafted him in whatever order they were going to be in on the depth chart. And, it's a great point to make. If they feel comfortable that Dylan Gabriel's one snap away from playing, if Joe Flacco gets hurt or something like that, then so be it, right? I mean, there's no real long-term benefit to having Pickett on Cleveland's roster. They get the draft pick back, everything breaks even, and then they've got a couple of young guys. We might see both of them suit up this year because Joe Flacco hasn't taken more than 300 dropbacks since 2018. I wouldn't expect that he's going to play in all 17 games this year either.
All right, so Browns' initial look at this roster, they've gotten a lot younger. They've gotten faster and they've gotten quicker. Is that kind of your assessment of when you look at what they did roster-wise? They kept a lot of rookies, a lot of undrafted free agents, and a lot of young guys.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely what you have to do. This is a long-term project now, Dave. I mean, you're talking about a 40-year-old quarterback. You're talking about an older offensive line that they're going to have to work on next offseason. 4 of the starters are going to be 30 years old by the time the season starts here. And, you got to find young foundational pieces, right? The Deshaun Watson trade, that obviously failed them. Their quarterback situation's a mess. They have to find foundational young pieces, and this is where any team in a rebuild has to get to, right? There's similar teams in the NFL, the New Orleans Saints, the New York Jets, the Tennessee Titans. They're all in the same boat where you're just trying to find those guys 25, 26 years old or younger who you can carry into the next 4 or 5 seasons. Those can be core pieces. The Browns are trying to find that, especially with some of the athletes they're bringing up through the draft this year.
Dalton Wasserman from PFF and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, turn our attention to the college game. A couple of big college games that even Browns fans will want to pay attention to for the quarterback. Sports4CLE. I'll be right back. Stay with us.
You got so much to do, it's got you feeling blue. Put a little play in your day, 'cause it's fun all over the state. So come on, great games wait for you and me. The Ohio Lottery. Put a little play in your day. Put a little play in your day.
We turn our attention to college football with Dalton Wasserman from PFF. He is co-host of the PFF College Football Show. So, Dalton, a few big college games this weekend. Things got rolling on a limited basis last weekend, week 0, if you will. But a full slate this weekend, and the big one is in Columbus. Ohio State defending national champs against top-ranked Texas. What are your thoughts about that one?
I mean, just a fascinating game, right? You've got the number 1 team in the country, according to the AP poll in Texas, and the defending national champions in Ohio State. And both teams are dealing with a whole lot of turnover on their rosters, right? Both teams obviously played in the Final Four of the playoff last year, and you've just got so many storylines, right? You've got Ohio State with a brand new quarterback. You've got Texas with a relatively new quarterback who's been there for 2 years already, but we saw a little bit of him last year in Arch Manning. All of Ohio State's weapons, both teams with really good secondaries. I mean, just the amount of turnover you have on these two teams, it's not the same game that you're going to see that was played in the semifinal last year, but it's fascinating stuff, and it really sets the tone for a lot of the playoff implications that we're going to see throughout the season.
Yeah, week 1, and we're talking playoffs. Arch Manning. I've heard there's some national guys that have said the tape doesn't match the hype. And the one thing is he's taken 90 pass attempts, 25 runs. You really got a comb to be looking at tape of 115 plays across 2+ years of. What do you expect from Arch Manning?
I expect him to look good because, look, there's still young, fast weapons in this offense. He's got a really good tight end that transferred in from Cal. And I think the underrated thing about this Texas team, and this includes Manning himself because he's a really good athlete, they're really going to be able to run the ball. They've got C.J. Baxter. They have Trey Wisner, 2 really good running backs back there. And Manning is a much more mobile threat for Texas than Quinn Ewers was last year. Some of that tape includes a 67-yard touchdown run. So, look, this isn't just an old-school Peyton or Eli Manning that's not going to move back there. He's a really good athlete, and he adds a dimension to the run game that I think Steve Sarkisian is still going to want to use in this offense. He's still going to be very balanced in this offense, a lot of play action. So he's not going to change too many things when it comes to, okay, we need Arch to carry us. He's not going to do that. That's not how Steve Sarkisian's offense works. It's still going to be balanced. He's going to help his young quarterback out with his play calling.
And the other thing is this is a kid that's going to develop. If you paid any attention to him, and he was all over the place as a high school kid in Louisiana, he can play, and he's going to get better and better.
Absolutely. I think it's going to be week to week. Now, it's a tough first assignment, absolutely, against Ohio State, against the defending national champions. But I will say Ohio State's front 7, especially their defensive line, they're trying to find answers. They lost a lot of veterans, lost a lot of guys to the NFL. I believe, tied or set the record for the most draftees from one school in 1 year. So I think their front 7, if they can't find a way to pressure Arch Manning, they're going to have problems with him because when he's in a clean pocket, any young quarterback in a clean pocket is going to feel like they have success. So got to find a way to get some pressure on him. But then the challenge is throwing through Caleb Downs in that secondary. It is going to be a fascinating game, especially on that side of the ball.
So you mentioned new quarterback for Ohio State, Julian Sayin. What do you expect from him and a young guy?
It's funny with this game because all the talk is going to be about Arch Manning, and yet Julian Sayin's really the big mystery of the entire game, right? We don't know what he's going to come out and look like. Now, I liked how he looked in the spring game and especially his ability to throw over the middle of the field and his accuracy, but you're talking about playing a defense in Texas that throws a lot of different looks at you, especially on the back end and coverage. And keep in mind, this Texas team was the only one last year that really held Jeremiah Smith to a quiet day. So you're talking about a guy who's going to rely on a great group of weapons, but Ohio State would still be wise to balance it out and not rely on him too much. But I see an accurate, urgent rhythm passer who I think, if he is clean in the pocket, can make the really nice throws, especially accurately over the middle. But it's his very first start now. It's not his third start like Manning, and he's had 2 years of seasoning already. He had 1 year of seasoning last year, but he hardly played. I think Sayin really could be the big X factor in this game.
What are you expecting at the running back position for the Buckeyes? You had two of them go in the second round in the NFL draft.
I think a little bit of a drop-off. There's obviously some guys you like there. You've got James Peoples, obviously. C.J. Donaldson from West Virginia is a big physical back, but I don't think you get quite as dynamic as you did last year with Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson. And it's similar to the questions we have about the entire team. I mean, those are two just excellent backs for them. Obviously, there's a reason they both went in the top 40. So, you're going to be talking about really finding the core pieces on the offensive line and at running back for this run game, because they're going to still need some balance with a brand new quarterback. We have faith in the wide receivers, and they got maybe the best wide receiving core in the nation, but got to find a way to have balance. And those new set of backs, they're going to be under a lot of pressure this year.
What other games paying attention to?
Oh, man, there's so many of them this week, Dave. It's such a stacked week one. Top 10 matchups with Clemson, LSU, and Notre Dame, Miami are fascinating. You got Bill Belichick's first game at North Carolina. I'm super fascinated by this Friday night game. Auburn going to Baylor. Two teams trying to take the next step in their development. A big face-off game there. Alabama goes to Florida State. This is as stacked a week one as I can remember. But if you're looking for the playoff implications, it's really those three top 10 matchups. The one we just talked about, plus Notre Dame, Miami, and Clemson, LSU.
Clemson, LSU in particular. Browns have a couple of high draft picks. You've got Nussmeier and Klubnik. What do you think of those two quarterbacks? And I would assume those are big reasons why those two teams are top 10. Those are guys that have played a lot of college football.
Yeah, absolutely. They've played a lot of college football, and they're pretty good bets to have big seasons this year. They both have loaded offenses with really good receiving cores. You look at Garrett Nussmeier, the son of Saints offensive coordinator Doug Nussmeier. He's brought up. You can tell he's got the NFL quarterback pedigree. The one thing with him is he's a gunslinger. He's absolutely going to challenge tight windows. Sometimes he gets into a little trouble with it, and we'll see that against Clemson possibly this week in their great defense. So Nussmeier's an old-school pocket passing gunslinger. And Cade Klubnik's interesting because his freshman year was not very good. Last year, he was spectacular. He's our highest-graded returning passer in the country this year. He likes to get vertical down the field as well. He's got a little bit of mobility to him. With him, it's about ball placement and improving underneath accuracy. So I'm really curious to see both of those guys, especially squaring off against each other. Clemson's got a great defense for Nussmeier to face. LSU made a lot of transfer additions that they're hoping makes their defense better. That's going to be a fantastic football game in the Battle of Death Valleys.
Who in particular, quarterback-wise, because Browns fans are going to be looking at those college quarterbacks pretty much all season, who do you like that you think their game transfers, the skill set translates into the NFL the best? Take us through a couple of those to pay attention to.
Yeah, honestly, I'm a big believer in Manning. We know he's got the pedigree. We've seen a little bit of him. Those two guys we just mentioned, Nussmeier and Klubnik, are going to have big years, and it's going to be a matter of tweaking some little things. Obviously, Drew Aller's the same way. If his ball placement is just a little bit better this year, he's going to get a lot of hype, and I know he's the Cleveland kid. And one other guy I really am a big fan of is Sam Leavitt out at Arizona State. Got his first chance to start there after transferring from Michigan State last year. Won the Big 12, brought that team to the playoff, got really good arm talent, especially off-platform. It feels like the ball just explodes off his hand with a flick of his wrist. He's a really underrated athlete. You saw his athleticism in the playoff game against Texas. Sam Leavitt from Arizona State, along with his number one receiver, Jordan Tyson, those are guys I'm watching for out west.
All right, before I let you go, other than Arch Manning, Jeremiah Smith, who are some other guys you think could kind of steal the show and get some attention? Doesn't have to be a quarterback. You can give me a defensive guy, and give me a running back, and give me a wide receiver.
I'll give you a guy in that Texas-Ohio State game that I think very well could be the best player on the field on Saturday. And that's the defensive end for Texas, Colin Simmons, number 11. Absolute freak of a true freshman year last season. I just think he is unbelievably talented. It's about 6'3", 245, 250. Already a solid run defender as well. And I think Ohio State's young offensive line, they're going to have a problem handling him. I'm telling you right now, if I'm saying, I'm getting rid of the ball quickly. And then everybody's favorite running back, I'll throw you one more from Notre Dame, Jeremiah Love. That's going to be a big matchup against Miami. They got a really good defensive line. It's going to be a physical, I think a low-scoring football game. Jeremiah Love, he was hurt in the playoff last year, didn't quite get to play up to his full capability. But the consensus right now is that he's the best running back in college football. He's got a chance to go and prove it against Miami on Sunday night.
Dalton Wasserman, Pro Football Focus, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Dalton.
Appreciate you as always, Dave. Thank you.
Dalton Wasserman, make sure you catch him. PFF College Football Show, really good stuff relative to NFL and college football as well. It's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.